So you want to buy a home in British Columbia, but honestly, you don't even know where to start. You might be asking yourself, do I talk to a realtor first? Do I talk to a bank first? How much down payment do I need? What happens after I find a home? What are the subjects? What is a deposit? And what are these costs? And what are these extra costs no one tells you about? If that sounds like you, this video is for you. Today, I'm going to walk you through the home buying process in BC in a very simple, beginner friendly way. No complicated language, no pressure, just a clear step by step guide so you understand what actually happens when you buy a home. Most of my work is in Surrey, Langley, Cloverdale, South Surrey, the Tri Cities, basically the Fraser Valley and the Greater Vancouver area. But honestly, a lot of what I'm going to share with you today applies to buyers across BC. So if you are early in the process, don't feel embarrassed. This is exactly where every buyer starts. So let's get into it. Before we start, my name is Roshan Victor. I'm a realtor here in the Fraser Valley and the Metro Vancouver area. And on this channel, I talk about real estate, market updates, buyer mistakes, seller strategies, and what is really happening in BC's housing market. So if you're thinking of buying, selling, investing, or trying to understand the market better, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon. And if you want to have a conversation about your situation, there is a link in my description below. No pressure. Let's have a chat and see if I can be of help. Even if you are 6 months to a year away from actually starting this entire process. Today, we are going to cover 7 big things. Number one, how agency works in BC and what your relationship with a realtor actually means. Number two, how to figure out what type of property you really need. Number three, how to choose the right agent. Number four, financing and mortgage. Number five, the extra cost you need to budget for. Number six, how the property search actually works. And number seven, writing an offer, removing subjects, closing, and getting the keys. So let's start with the first one, understanding agency in BC. This part is very important because BC is a little different from many other places. In British Columbia, if you are buying a home, you should have your own representation. That means if you walk into an open house, the listing agent is working for the seller. This job is to present, their job is to represent the seller's best interest, not yours. So generally, you cannot just walk into an open house and expect the listing agent to fully represent you as a buyer. And honestly, that is a good thing because when you are buying a home, especially for first time buyers, you need someone on your side. You need someone who can look at the property, look at the documents, look at the price, look at the risks, and say, this is actually a good decision for you. Not just let's get the deal done. In BC, one of the first forms a realtor should explain to you is called disclosure of representation in trade. You may have heard this also being called DOTS, DORTS. This form explains whether the realtor is representing you or not representing you. And this should happen early before you start sharing too much personal information or receiving personalized advice. Why does this matter? Because if a realtor represents you, they owe you loyalty, confidentiality, full disclosure, and they must put your best interest ahead of their own. This is very serious representation. This is very serious responsibility. If they do not represent you, then you need to understand the risks of being unrepresented. And to keep it simple, if you are unrepresented, you should be careful what you say because anything you share, your budget, your motivation, your timelines, and your weaknesses can affect the negotiation. So, my best honest advice is this: if you are buying a home in BC, especially if you are new to the process, get proper representation. Do not try to figure this out alone. Do not do not try to figure this out alone just to avoid bothering someone. A good realtor's job is to guide you, educate you, and protect you through the process. Now, let's talk about the second topic: figuring out what you actually need. Now, before you start looking for homes, you need to understand what you are actually looking for. And I don't mean just saying, I want a townhome in Langley. That is too broad. You need to sit down, make a real list, ask yourself these questions: what location do I want? How many bedrooms do I need? How many bathrooms do I need? Do I need a bathroom on the main floor or am I okay adjusting with it? Do I need a den? Do I need a basement suite? Do I need a yard? Do I need to park two vehicles? Do I need a parking pad for a larger vehicle? Do I need a garage? Do I want a newer home or am I okay with something older? Do I want a strata property or a freehold? Do I care about directions and which direction the home is facing? Do I need natural light? Do I want walkability? Do I need to be close to a school, transit, work, family, temple, church, parks, or community? And then, do you need to break the list? And after doing this, you need to break this list into three categories. The first one, the must haves. These are non negotiable. For example, if you have three kids, maybe three bedrooms is a must. If you work from home, maybe a den is a must. If you have elderly parents living with you, maybe stairs are a problem. So your layout becomes much more important. Second is nice to haves. These are things you would love to have, but they are not deal breakers. Example, you like gardening. Maybe a south facing yard is important to you. Maybe a newer kitchen. Maybe a double car garage. Maybe a condo complex with a pool. These are important, but maybe you can compromise if everything else makes sense. Now, the third, the must not haves, the deal breakers. Maybe you do not want to be on a busy road. Maybe you do not want a property near to a power line. Maybe you do not want a ground floor condo. Maybe you do not want a strata with rental restrictions or, even more important, pet restrictions. Maybe you do not want a home with a history of major water damage. This is where buyers often make a mistake. They only focus on what they want, but they do not spend enough time thinking about what they absolutely do not want. Once you have your list, rank your must haves. Because let me be very honest, in real estate, almost everyone has to compromise somewhere. You may want a location, size, age, layout, yard, garage, school catchment, and price all to line up perfectly. And that's not practical and realistic. But in the Fraser Valley and Metro Vancouver, budget usually forces off trade offs. So the real question is, what matters most? Is it the location? Is it the size? Is it newer construction? Is it the commute? Is it the school catchment? Is it future resale? Is it monthly payments? When you know your priorities, you make better decisions and you make them faster. That matters because good homes can still move quickly, even in a slower market. Let's talk about the third point: choosing the right realtor. Now, let's talk about choosing the realtor. And I want to keep this very practical. Some people choose a realtor because they saw them on a bus bench. Some choose them because their Instagram page is very nice and they see a lot of stories and posts on Instagram and think they are successful. Some choose a family friend. Some choose whoever replies first. But buying a home is too important to choose someone randomly. The first one is experience. And when I say experience, don't just, I don't mean how many years they have had a license. I mean how many real transactions are they involved in. Because real estate changes quickly. A realtor who is actively working with buyers and sellers weekly will usually have a better pulse on the market than someone who does a few deals a year. Second, ask where their business comes from. Do they get it from repeat clients? Do clients refer their friends and family? Do people come back to them? That tells you a lot because marketing can get you attention, but referrals usually come from trust. Third, do they actually have time for you? And that's a big one. Are you just a number for them or are they invested in you? I hear buyers saying this: I don't want to bother my realtor. Please don't think like that. Your realtor is supposed to help you. If you are serious about buying and your realtor is not available to show you homes, review listings, explain documents, give you his honest opinion and advice, that may not be the right fit. Fourth, do they explain things clearly? Especially if you are a first time buyer, you need someone who can slow down things and explain the process, not someone who makes you feel rushed or silly for asking basic questions. There are no silly questions when you are buying a home. This is probably one of the biggest financial decisions of your life. So make sure you ask as many questions as possible. Find out as much as you can before you put an offer and remove your subjects. Fifth, do you trust them? This is very important because your realtor has a duty to put your interest first. Sometimes that means telling you this is a good opportunity, but sometimes it also means saying, I don't think this is the right property for you. And you need someone who is comfortable telling you both. Not every house is a good buy. Not every deal is worth chasing. And not every property makes sense just because you can technically afford it. Number four, financing. Comfort level versus approval amount. Now let's talk about financing. And this is where many buyers get confused. There are two numbers you get to understand. Number one, what bank says you can afford. Number two, what you can actually comfortably pay every month. These are not always the same number. A bank may approve you for a certain purchase price, but that does not mean you should automatically spend that money. You need to look at your life. You need to answer these questions. Do you have kids? Do you travel? Do you support your family back home? Do you have savings or what kind of savings do you want? Do you have car payments? Do you expect your income to increase? Is your job stable? Are you self employed? Are you on commissions? Are you on a salary plus bonuses? All of these things matter. Some buyers are comfortable stretching a little because they know their income is going to grow. For others, they need to take a more conservative approach because their income is fixed and their monthly budget needs to stay predictable. So before you fall in love with a home, speak with a good mortgage broker or bank specialist. Personally, I usually suggest buyers speak with a mortgage broker because they can compare multiple lenders. A bank can usually only offer you that bank's product. A broker may have access to the banks, credit unions, monoline lenders, and other options. But the right answer depends on your situation. And that the important thing is this: do not start seriously shopping without a proper pre approval. Because if you find the right property and then start figuring out your finances, you may lose the home, or even worse, you may write an offer and then realize the numbers don't work. So, step one, understand your monthly comfort level. Step two, get pre approved. Step three, then start shopping with a realistic range. Let's briefly go over down payment basics. Now, let's talk about the down payment. In Canada, for homes under 500,000, the minimum down payment can be 5%. For a home between 500 and under 1.5 million, the minimum down payment is 5% on the first $500,000 and 10% on the portion above 500 up to 1.5 million. So for a home above 1.5 million, you generally will need 20% down payment. Now, that does not mean every buyer should only put the minimum down. It depends on your situation, your income, your cash availability, your monthly payment comfortability, and your long term plan. Your down payment can come from various sources: savings, sale of another property, RRSP in certain situations, or a gift from a family member. If the lender allows it and it is properly documented, though. This is why you need a mortgage professional involved early, because where the money comes from matters. Now let's talk about fixed versus variable. You will need to decide whether you want a fixed rate mortgage or a variable rate mortgage. A fixed rate gives you more stability. Your payments are predictable. For many first time home buyers, that peace of mind is very valuable. A variable rate may have more flexibility and sometimes lower penalties if you break the mortgage, but your payments or amortization can be affected with rate changes. This is not one size fit all answer. The right mortgage depends on your risks, tolerance, income, timeline, and whether you think you may make a move before the term is finished. One thing I always tell buyers: do not chase the lowest rate. Look at the full mortgage product. What are penalties? Can you port it? Can you make extra payments? What happens if you sell early? What happens if life changes? The cheapest rate is not always the best mortgage. Number five. Now let's talk about cost beyond the down payment, because this is where many buyers get surprised. The first one, the first one is the deposit. The deposit is not an extra payment, but you need to have the money ready. In BC, a common deposit is around 5% of the purchase price but is negotiable. The deposit is usually paid after subjects are removed, unless you are writing a firm offer. For example, if you buy a $700,000 condo, your deposit should be around $35,000. That deposit becomes part of your down payment on completion. So it is not in addition to your down payment, but you need access to that cash at the right time. Next is property transfer tax, called PTT. This is a big one in BC and it is a tax grab. I get it. Its basic calculation is 1% of the first 200,000, 2% of the portion between 200,000 to 2 million, and higher rates above. A quick rough estimate many people use is 2% minus 2,000 for properties under 2 million. If you are a first time buyer, you may qualify for an exemption for partial. If you're a first time home buyer, you may qualify for an exemption or partial exemption depending on the purchase price and whether you meet the rules and requirements. But do not assume you qualify. Always confirm with your lawyer, notary, accountant, or the BC government rules before relying on it. Next, you need a lawyer or notary. A notary can handle the transfer and closing papers. A lawyer can also do that, but if something goes wrong, a lawyer can provide legal advice, whereas a notary cannot. Personally, I like buyers to use a good real estate lawyer, especially in transactions that have complexities. Budget roughly around 2000 to $2,500 depending on the transaction, mortgage, title work, and the firm you use. The next cost which you need to factor in and at closing is your home inspection, and that could cost you around $500 to $700 depending on the property. And please note, the goal of the inspection is not to complain about small things. It is not about a loose doorknob or a paint scratch. The goal is to find major issues: roofing problems, foundation concerns, moisture, mold, electrical, plumbing, drainage, major safety issues. You are looking for things that could change your decision. Next is appraisal. Sometimes lenders pay for it, sometimes the buyer has to pay for it. It can be a few $100s. This is for the lender to confirm the property value supports the mortgage. Now, the next one is moving costs. If you're a first time home buyer, maybe you rent a truck and ask family and friends. If you have a lot of furniture and you are moving from a larger home, movers are expensive. So budget for it. It can cost you anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 depending on how much furniture you have and how much time it takes. Do you want packaging services or just moving services? Next is adjustments. This means your lawyer will adjust the property taxes, strata fees, utilities, and other costs depending on your completion date. For example, if the seller already has paid property taxes for the year and you move in halfway through the year, you may have to reimburse the seller for the additional portion that he has paid. And finally, let's talk about GST. GST usually applies on brand new homes, not typical resale homes. If you're buying a new construction, pre-sale, or substantially renovated property, speak to your accountant and lawyers so you can understand exactly how GST applies. GST can be a big number. Up to $1.1 million if you're buying a brand new condo, GST is not applicable. Condo or a townhouse, GST is not applicable. And so is PATT not applicable if you are a qualified first time home buyer. But there is a section where you may have to pay it in advance and then claim a rebate. Number 6. Now we talk about searching for the property. Once you understand your budget, your needs, your financing, then we start looking at homes. Most buyers start online, and that is fine. You look at realtor.ca, brokerage websites, listing alerts, and other real estate platforms. But understand this: public websites do not always show you everything you need to make a decision. A realtor can usually give you more details, information, sold history, listing history, strata documents when available, title information, and context around pricing. And context matters because a home can look good online and still be overpriced, or it can look average online and actually be a great opportunity. Once your realtor sets up a proper property search, you should always be receiving properties that match your criteria. Not every listing in the city. That is how buyers get overwhelmed. Then we start viewing homes. For private showings, usually your realtor books the appointment and you go through the home together. In the Fraser Valley, many showings are done with your agent using a lockbox. In some areas, the listing agent may be present. When you view homes, try not to get distracted by staging. Beautiful furniture does not come with the home. And on the flip side, do not ignore a good property just because it is messy, vacant, or poorly presented. Because here's the thing: you get vacant possession. So everything from that home is out and you get bare bones. And if you can visualize yourself in that empty space and you can put your touch onto it, That is the best case scenario. Some of the best deals, and here is what I've learned, and here is what I've realized over time. Some of the best deals are not the prettiest ones online. A clean staged property will usually attract more buyers. A vacant or poorly presented property may have less competition. That can create an opportunity. And also, when you go to an open house, remember this: the agent at the open house usually represents the seller. Be polite, ask general questions, but do not share your budget, your motivation, strategy. Do not overshare, because the realtor represents the seller and has an obligation to disclose everything that you have spoken to them to the sellers. And that puts you in a weaker position if that's the property and you want to negotiate it. Now, let's talk about writing an offer. You found the right home and now you are ready to write an offer. Most buyers think the only thing that matters is price. Yes, price is important, but it is not the only thing. There are four major parts of an offer: price, dates, deposits, and subjects or conditions. So let's start with price. Your offer price should be based on comparable sales, market conditions, days on market, competition, property condition, and seller's motivation, not just emotions. Second, dates. A seller may want a quick completion or may need more time to move. You may have a lease ending, a school timeline, a job relocation, or a mortgage rate hold. Sometimes the right dates can make your offer stronger without increasing the price. The third, deposit. A stronger deposit can show the seller that you are serious. In BC, around 5% is common, but this depends on the situation. Fourth, subjects. Subjects are your due diligence conditions. This is where you protect yourself. Common subjects include financing, inspection, title review, property disclosure statements, insurance, strata document review, and if and that is this is where you protect yourself. Common subjects include financing, inspection, title review, property disclosure statement, insurance, and strata document review if it is in a strata property. Now let's talk about each subject individually. The property disclosure statement is filled out by the seller and gives the information about the property from the seller's point of view. This is not a guarantee that everything is perfect, but it is an important document as the seller, to the best of his knowledge, is disclosing certain answers to questions which have been laid out in that document. Title review shows ownership, charges, easements, rights of ways, covenants, and other registered items. Detached homes can have title issues. Strata properties can have more complicated title documents. The insurance subject is also important because you need to make sure the home can be properly insured, and this matters even more as the homes get older. Older wiring, older plumbing, flood risks, prior claims, and other concerns govern how much you would potentially pay as premiums. Now let's talk about financing. This gives your lender time to approve the property and finalize your mortgage. Even if you are pre approved, the lender still has to approve a specific property. This typically can be anywhere from 5 business days to probably 10 business days in the current market. But do check with your lender of how much time he needs prior to actually putting in those dates. Now let's talk about inspection. The inspection subject gives you time to inspect the home. If it is a strata property, you will likely review strata documents as well. That includes council minutes. The inspection subject gives you time to inspect the property. And like I mentioned, It is not about a chipped paint or there. We are looking for structural issues and big ticket items that can be expensive for the incoming buyers to cover. And that's something which a good inspector will point out and highlight to you. Let's talk about strata documents for properties that you're buying into a condo or a townhouse. It includes council minutes, AGM minutes, depreciation report, Form B, bylaws, financials, insurance, and other documents. This is where you look for things like upcoming special levies, building maintenance issues, insurance problems, rental restrictions, pet restrictions, parking and storage details, bylaws that affect your lifestyle. For example, if a strata does not allow pets and you have a dog, that's a major issue. If the building is discussing a large repair, you need to know that before you buy. Now let's talk about home buyer recession period. In BC, buyers have something called the home buyer recession period. Some people call it the cooling off period. In simple terms, after an accepted offer on many residential properties, the buyer has 3 business days to walk away from almost any reason that he has, but he has to pay a fees. That fees is 0.25% of the agreed purchase price. So if the purchase price is 800,000, the fees would be $2,000 to walk away from that offer, no questions asked. But here's the important thing. If you already have proper subjects like financing, inspection, you may not need to rely on the recession period because your subjects may already allow you to walk away if something does not check out. This is why it is important to understand your contract before signing it. Now, presenting the offer. Let's talk about a good realtor should not just email the offer and disappear. They should present the offer properly. If your offer is lower, they should explain why. If you are a strong buyer, they should communicate that. If your financing is solid, your deposit is ready, your dates are flexible, and you genuinely love the home, that story matters. Not always, but sometimes, because sellers are human. They want the best price, yes, but they also want confidence that the deal will close. A clean, well presented offer from a serious buyer can be very powerful. Now, accepted offer and subject removal. Once your offer is accepted, you usually move into the due diligence period. This is where everything needs to happen quickly. Your mortgage broker works on the final approval, your inspection gets booked, your realtor reviews documents with you, your lawyer may review the title and other legal items. You review strata documents if applicable, you arrange insurance, you can get your deposit ready. If everything checks out, you remove subjects and pay the deposit. At that point, the deal becomes firm. That means you have bought the property subject to completion. This is why you do not remove subjects casually. Once the subjects are removed, you are committed. Now comes the completion, possession, and getting your keys part, the happy moment. Now let's talk about that. There are two very important dates: completion date and possession date. Completion day is when money changes hands and ownership transfers to you. Possession day, you get the keys. They may not be the same date. For example, completion can be on a Thursday and possession can be on Saturday at noon. And here is something very important: your insurance must start on the completion date, not on the possession date. But once completion happens, you own the property, even if you do not get the keys yet. Before completion, you will meet with your lawyers or your notary, sign documents, transfer the remaining down payment and closing costs, and finalize everything. On possession day, your realtor usually gets the keys from the listing agent and meets you at the property. You do a walkthrough, you check the appliances on that particular day, you check for the home and its expected condition, and then you get your keys. Now, congratulations, you are officially a homeowner. And yes, even if the home looks clean, you will probably want to clean it again. That is just part of moving. After possession, you also need to set up things like BC Hydro, Fortis if applicable, internet, strata payments if it's a strata, property tax account, mortgage payments, home insurance, mail forwarding. Make sure your first mortgage payment is understood clearly. Mortgage payments are usually paid after the period, unlike rents, which are paid in advance. So your first payment may be different depending on your completion date. Now, if you have made it this far, you should have a much clearer understanding of how buying a home in BC actually works. But there is one more thing we have not fully covered today, and that's market conditions. Because the process is one thing, but the strategy changes depending on the market. A buyer's market, balanced market, or seller's market all require different approaches. Your offer strategy changes, your subject strategy changes, your negotiation changes, the urgency changes, and the risks change. That is why I always say do not just buy a home because you like the kitchen. Understand the property, understand the numbers, understand the documents, understand the market, and most importantly, understand whether the home actually fits your life. If you're thinking about buying anywhere in the lower mainland, Surrey, Langley, Cloverdale, South Surrey, White Rock, or the Tri Cities, there's a link in my description below to book a one on one call with me. Let's have a chat and see how I can help you. Even if you are early in the process, I'm happy to have this conversation and help you understand what the next steps are. My name is Roshan Victor. Thank you for watching. And as always, make informed decisions, ask good questions, and surround yourself with the right people before you make one of the biggest purchases of your life. If you made it this far, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon and give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching.